Hello and welcome to the North Coast Journal preview, where we take a look at the stories being followed in the current edition of the North Coast Journal. I'm your host, Dave Frank, and I'm joined this week by Jennifer Fumiko Cahill, the Arts and Features Editor at the North Coast Journal. Welcome, Jen.
How you doing, Dave?
Pretty good. Notably absent is your partner in crime, Thad Greenson, news editor. So thank you for representing.
Thank you for having me and for, braving this time alone with me.
No, it's my pleasure. I always enjoy our time. And in fact, I think I've only bumped into you in public a couple of times in restaurants, and I'm always like, that table looks like fun. So let's carry that.
And I want to thank you for not, hiding from me. That's in public. It's really nice.
Yeah. So let's bring the fun. I think we actually can start without Thad. We can start this off with the cover story that's got a lot of fun. So why don't you tell us about what's on the cover this week?
Yeah, I got to write a really fun story this week. Over the weekend, the first Obon Festival in Humboldt County took over the sort of big lot in front of the Arcata Playhouse, and it was amazing. I have been following what a couple of groups have been doing, and they've got a lot of overlap between them, but one of them is HAPI, which is Humboldt Asian Pacific Islanders in Solidarity. And of course, the name is a play on the hapi coat, which is a kind of a cotton kimono-shaped short coat that people wear for festivals in Japan. And they decided they were going to put on this festival. It actually grew out of a couple of years ago. You may remember the Humboldt swing taiko that kind of happened. They had something called a swing posium, where they joined forces with San Jose Taiko and did it sounds incongruous at first, but it is not. And I urge you to go back and look at it. We have some things in our archive about it. They put on a swing dance and taiko drumming performance that kind of played off the big band music of the 1940s and, swing dancing and the Japanese experience in camps, being incarcerated without trial in the United States during World War II. And they kind of made this a kind of a musical dance presentation about culture, resilience, about, having your civil rights stripped away and maintaining your identity, maintaining yourself, and seeking justice afterward. So they put that together. And while they were fundraising for it, they kind of were all talking to each other and saying, hey, we should put on an Obon festival, because that's one of the biggest annual events in terms of a public festival that, Japanese and Japanese Americans have. And they thought, yes, let's do this. We'll do a summer festival. And then COVID came. So for a couple of years, it was on pause. But then they were kind of looking around a few months ago, and they were like, maybe this is possible. We could do, because Obon is always an outdoor festival. Maybe we could do this. We could do drumming and Obon dancing. And even Obon dancing, it's not like, you're not at a rave. People are pretty spaced out, considering, and they're kind of walking slowly in a circle doing this dance. It felt to them like something that was possible. So they started putting it together, and they did it, but quick. And in a couple of months, or a few months, they put together an event, and they had no idea how many people would show up. They were like, we'll get a permit for like 400 people and just see what happens. And, they do their nonprofit status and their event insurance through the Ink people. They're a dream maker project. And like everybody and their mother, am I an Ink people dream maker project? I might be, I'm not sure. But they got this thing, they got the permit for like 400 people, and they're like, well, we have no idea who will show up, right? The Japanese community in Humboldt is pretty tiny and dispersed. There isn't like a neighborhood. right? There isn't like, I don't know, we don't all go to a club unless maybe they do go to a club and no one called me. But so they were like, we'll just do it. And it was a very pan-Asian and multicultural effort, and which Hoppy is pretty pan-Asian, even though most of its founding members are Japanese American. They are really focused on doing things in regard to like Chinese Americans, South Asians, Pacific Islanders. Like they are interested in doing more events and that include more kinds of people. But as one of the main organizers, Marilyn Pike Nicely, was explaining, there were all kinds of people involved. There were, a lot of non-Asians and Asians of all kinds that were involved in this project. And when it finally happened, there were hundreds and hundreds of people.
Nice.
I was fully ready to get down there and be like, I asked Dave Woody to come and take pictures. He's marvelous. His pictures are wonderful. And you'll be able to see a fantastic slideshow starting Thursday. I was like, whatever it is, it's interesting to me because it's the first one. So I got down there with my daughter, and it was packed. It was a lot of people. And it began with shakuhachi performance by Rob Cruz. And then there was taiko drum performances, which if you haven't been to a taiko Humboldt performance, you really got to go. It is like, you can feel it in your ribs. It's this big sound. You really have to experience it live and really feel it in the room. It's fantastic.
These are big drums.
Big drums.
Yeah.
The smallest ones you can just put your arms around. And then the big one is on this big stand, and it's like, could be your kitchen table. And some of the taiko drums that are out there are redonkulous, but Gary Ronnie, who is the main teacher for the taiko group, he did this incredible solo performance where he's like leaping all over the place, and he is like the most nimble, like I don't even know. He's ageless and nimble and amazing. I was exhausted. I was sweating by the end. So many people came out in what we call yukata, which is like a summer kimono. It's made of cotton instead of heavy silk. And in varying states of, what we'd call like correctness. So in Japan, if you wore just like a kimono or haori as like a coat, it would be really strange. It would be like having part of a tuxedo on you or something. It would just be sort of odd. But this was a really inclusive kind of like, come and, the organizers were like, come and wear whatever speaks to your connection to Japan and Japanese culture. And people did. And it didn't matter if you showed up with this thing hanging off you like a bathrobe, or if you were fully decked out as like, shout out to Holly Harvey, our production manager, who does a lot of tea ceremony and things like that, and wears a kimono like an empress. She's amazing. But they, these people showed up and just showed out. And there were, I got to talk to Gerald Sakamoto, who came from the San Jose Buddhist Temple to give an address. And he had some wonderful things to say about it. Normally the kinds of Obon festivals that he presides over in San Jose are like, there are 900 dancers. It's massive. They have a lot of Japanese Americans.
Just dancers, 900. Oh, wow.
Just the dancers. And he was saying that he didn't know what to expect coming up here, but the interest, especially from non-Japanese people, the interest from the community really moved him. And he was saying that there's a lot of connection and kind of togetherness that can get lost at a big festival. And the thing about Obon is, if you haven't had any experience with it before, Alex Ozaki McNeil explained it to me that when she's explaining to other people, the easiest way is to draw some parallels to Dia de los Muertos. So while they come from totally different religions and they live in totally different cultures, they are both about connecting with your ancestors, honoring your ancestors. And, you make an altar and put food out for them. You put up pictures. It's a way of connecting with the people that you've lost, whether they're 3 generations back or somebody you just lost recently. But it's really lovely. It's a celebration of tradition, and it's festive. It's not grim. Some of the customs that we follow for Obon, if you follow them, involve, going to the graveyard and maintaining the grave, making offerings there. You might come home and have an altar in your home if you're Buddhist, or you might just, even if you are not religious in any way, shape, or form, go to the Obon festival. And that's where you do this folk dance and take part in a real community event. And it's kind of lovely. It's lovely to see here.
So there's some great pictures already in the article, the print article, but as you said, there'll be more available online. So I've seen some dancing and I've seen some drumming. You mentioned this is a traditional festival. I think in the article it says it's over 500 years old. So there's all this tradition. What else? What else did people do while they were there to celebrate during the street festival?
Well, they ate all the food. There were just a couple of vendors because, like I said, they didn't know how many people were going to come, and they ran out of everything. But it's kind of a good sign, right? That there's this, that vendors might be able to make money at a future event like this is a nice sign. They also kind of came up with a new tradition, since we are, always growing and changing with traditions. They came up with something really interesting. Kelly Garrett, who was also on the committee for this event, came up with a kind of a riff on a Shinto tradition of leaving up kind of hopes, wishes, prayers, and on little wooden plaques, and instead made paper strips to hang in a tree. And people wrote down messages for their loved ones on the strips and hung them up. And it was a way for people to feel engaged with the, you might not have an altar at home. You might not be Buddhist. You might not be, it's probably not part of your practice if you are, your average Humboldt citizen, but it allowed people to really engage. And also it's a new tradition. And as Craig Kuramada, who's fantastic, and he's the one who taught people how to do the dance, or dances, there were like 8 of them. You might know him from the folk band Chubritsa that plays a lot around Humboldt and also out of state and at big folk festivals and folk dancing festivals and whatnot. He was talking about how within the folk dance world and the folk music world, there are kind of 2 camps, and one camp wants to preserve and freeze everything as it was and keep it the same always. And the other camp is like, no, let it grow, let it change, let it evolve. And it seems like the Hopi folks are really into that latter camp, and they are letting this tradition evolve into a Humboldt version of Obon. And yeah, it was great to see. There was a lot of creativity and a lot of great energy there.
Fantastic. So hopefully there'll be more of these in the future. Is that the intention you've heard?
Fingers crossed. There seems to be a lot of enthusiasm for it, and particularly the core group of women from Hopi have boundless energy.
That's a good sign then. Well, fantastic. Thank you for sharing this experience with us, and I'm definitely going to check out more of the photos because it looked really fun.
Yeah, they're great. Dave Woody's amazing.
Good deal. Let's pivot now to talk a little bit about some of the other coverage in this week's North Coast Journal. I think you're going to tell us a little bit about North Coast Journal Daily information that's available.
So in the North Coast Journal paper edition, for those of you who are doing analog, you'll see the NCJ Daily Online, which just refers to our online posts that are constantly changing. We have a weekly paper, but we are posting every day multiple stories that come up. And in particular, lately, we're talking about the 6 River fires because, news is changing daily on that. And this week, we're sharing what we thought was a really important piece. there's, again, 5 fires happening, and they're largely uncontained. And a lot of people have been displaced, humans, pets. There's the issue of smoke. People don't have the supplies they need, the food they need, etc. And so we've got a list of places that you can get in contact with if you need help or if you would like to help. And that includes everybody from Food for People, who obviously always a good time to help out Food for People. Please remember that the best thing you can give Food for People is cash. Yeah. Cans are great, but cash they can make go further than you and I can. And then Dream Quest Teen and Youth Center is getting together boxes of essentials and things like that to distribute. The post office is holding packages if you've been displaced out of your home. Pay It Forward Humboldt has become sort of a hub, and if you get in contact with them, they can direct you to the right services, get the right kind of help. When it comes to pets, because I know people are always asking, what about the pets? The Hoopa Rodeo Grounds have become a place to keep large animals and to help house smaller animals. People who are in shelters right now, some of their pets are being held at the grounds. Also, if you want to help, again, Food for People and Pay It Forward Humboldt are places you can go to and kind of let them know what you can provide, or ask them what they need. Some of the things that they need over at Pay It Forward Humboldt include like box fans, air filters. You can imagine how important that is for places that are inundated with smoke. Gift cards, which allows people to buy essentials like fuel, everything from like deodorant, paper towels, that kind of stuff, like the daily stuff that we take for granted because we're here with it in our homes. And they have a whole list of stuff that they could use. And another thing they need is volunteers. The head of Pay It Forward Humboldt, the director, Jessica Gregorio, shared the story of Happy Donuts. Hey, Natalie, Happy Donuts. Natalie wanted to send her delicious donuts to the people who were responding to the fires, but had no way to get them there. And so Pay It Forward Humboldt was able to coordinate people who were going to be going that way and could bring donuts and other things up to them. And so sometimes there's just that little missing link between the people who have something that they want to share and people, who need it, and volunteers make that happen. So we have resources and links and stuff for people to check out. Go take a look at it. You might be able to help in some way that you did not realize.
Fantastic. Thank you for, filling in the gaps on us for, how are people getting things done, in supporting the fire. One thing I think is worth noting that in your coverage is that Pay It Forward Humboldt says that we're small, we don't pay, this is a quote, we're small, we don't pay anyone, everything that comes in goes out, which is really reassuring that in fact they're trying to help people. Yeah,
I mean, I don't want to get excited here, but it sounds like they might be genuinely good people.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Yeah. Well, from your mouth to the ears of the universe, I hope that they continue to get support, because it seems like this fire is going to be around for a while.
Yeah. The Del Norte Humboldt fire chief was saying, yes, this is going to be a long battle. I think long battle were his exact words.
Unfortunate, to say the least. Well, thank you for that again. Let's pivot now to the arts and features beat, your typical coverage. What do you got going on this week?
Back to the creamy middle of the paper.
There you go.
So long ago, 2 years ago, when the pandemic was first taking over our lives and ruining everything, I wrote a story about how Frankie Baker was running Frankie's New York Bagels alone as a one-man shop. And you know what? When I interviewed him for that story, I was asking all kinds of questions like, so are you able to do this? Like, how are you able to have a life while you're doing this as a one-person thing? And really, you just get up at 3 o'clock in the morning every day, and then you pass out by 1 p.m. You've got this shoulder that needs surgery, and you're not. And then somewhere in the process of our interview, he called me up and he was like, so I'm going to shut it down. And immediately my kids were like, what did you do?
You did it. You broke it.
It was not my fault. Frankie had been thinking about it, but he stayed open for the past 2 years. He's been looking for a buyer, looking for a way to pass the business on to somebody who can take it over, because he's like, you know what? This business works. It functions. It can run small, which makes it kind of pandemic proof. But he was ready to go on and do other stuff, including fix that bad shoulder, which you can't do when you are working with bread, right? When you are working with your hands, you can't take however many months off to let your shoulder recover. So at some point, he had come close. He had made negotiations with people, but stuff always kind of fell through. And then finally, like last month, he just posted and he was like, listen, I got a great new job. He's actually going to be a youth prevention specialist with the nonprofit Humboldt Independent Practice Association.
Nice.
And he's going to be helping young people. And it's what he's been wanting to do for years and years. So it's great. He's been volunteering doing that kind of work anyway. So it's perfect fit. And he was like, you know what? I just got to say goodbye. So he announced, I'm leaving. I'm shutting it down. Thank you all. And then Steve and Rebecca Band were like, no, this can't be.
We need these bagels.
Right. And they actually came from the Bay Area a couple of years ago. And Rebecca is from the East Coast. She's from Stamford, Connecticut. And so these bagels were like, picture a life ring being thrown to you, but it's made of bread. So she was like, I can't lose these. And Steve told me that Frankie said, yeah, this is going to be your last bagel. And he said, no, it's not. They decided to buy the business from Frankie. And so for the past few weeks, they have been going in at the crack of dawn, particularly Steve, who is the one who's going to be doing the production, and learning to make the bagels. I know what you're thinking right now, and that is, are they going to stay the same?
Yeah.
They are. This is what Steve has promised me. And they are pretty devoted to the bagels. So I believe it. He was talking about wanting to be able to, as he put it, slot in and do what Frankie does. And once he's got that down, and once he and Rebecca have the business running smoothly on the current schedule, which is you have to order ahead. You can't just walk in for bagels. Once they have that down, then they can start expanding their hours. Then they can start looking at other items they might want to introduce. They are absolutely planning to keep the donuts, absolutely planning to keep the bagels. But they are both Jewish, and they are very interested in bringing forth more kind of Jewish family recipes, including hamantaschen. Mm-hmm. I don't know if have you had hamantaschen?
Yeah.
Or hamantaschen, depending on who you ask.
It's the goods.
They're that triangular, kind of like a little mini pie with all kinds of goodies in the middle, apricot, prune. Don't sleep on the prune hamantaschen. Always good. And then, which, as I was saying, I love hamantaschen partly because it is attached to Purim. And so it's attached to the holiday, and it's like telling a way to tell the story of Haman trying to destroy the Jewish people and then being defeated, and then they made a cookie about it. And then, they're looking at making rugula, which makes me extremely excited. And yeah, they're just looking at all kinds of cool new things that they can do, especially to bring holiday foods for the Jewish community in Humboldt that maybe haven't been available with the kinds of family recipes that they've enjoyed.
That sounds pretty awesome. Well, I'm glad Frankie's Bagels is revived. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's not going away, which is fantastic. Lifeline has arrived.
The relief is palpable.
Yeah. Yeah, they're the bomb. They're the best bagels I've had on the West Coast, actually. So I'm psyched for Steve and his wife Rebecca to carry the torch.
Me too.
Well, thank you so much, Jen. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have. I like rapping with you. We have a lot of fun, but parting is such sweet sorrow.
We'll be here next week.
That's true. We can make it work. North Coast Journal is available on newsstands now. Pick one up, stay informed. Also available 24/7 online, so you can always find them there. Thank you again for listening out there. Thanks, Jen, for being here, and we'll talk to you again next week. Take care till then. Bye.
See you next week.